Okay, we're going to start the Board of Education Source Committee meeting negotiations.
No, don't let them in yet.
Oh, okay.
You want Kyle in yet, Brian? Because we're going into closed session. You can let them in.
Yeah, we can let him in and then we'll vote him out again, I guess.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have the 3 board members here, and does anybody want to approve the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
And I didn't receive any public comments,
No.
so we'll go on. So I think we need to adjourn to a closed session. Somebody makes that motion, please.
Why don't we do, hey, Kyle?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, I think we're gonna jump into closed session for caucus to start with. So can we just, what's the easiest way? We'll probably just bounce you out and then have you come back in when we're back in open.
Sure. Sounds good.
I think your team was meeting in the back room.
Okay.
So I don't know if they gave you a link for that or not.
No, I'll just give him a call.
All right, sounds like a plan. Sounds good. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
So I would move that we go into closed session,
So, good.
and we should do that by roll. call.
Okay, roll call. Brian?
Here.
Yes.
Yes. Judy? Yes.
Okay, I have to get Kyle. And I have to pause my recording.
Rebecca.
Okay.
Well, I, for one, would like your names. I don't think I know everybody, especially with just your eyes showing. I'm Judy Ingebrigtsen.
Tina Pagel, I am a teacher at Arboretum.
Todd Shuka, I teach high school science. John Wedge, I'm with
Joe?
John.
John.
I'm Joan Ensign. I know most of you.
Randy Goodberg.
Everyone. Brian Haber.
Great. And we have Kyle up front.
Kyle Emmer, kindergarten teacher at Prairie.
Steve's zooming in.
Steve Summers, Executive Director of Operations. Good to see everybody.
I guess we are proposed to are able to provide the that's the chair. Yeah. Yes. The district. The district's proposal matches the proposal that the WTA provided of 1.23% CPI. With an even per year request of an equal distribution, that would be a number of $739.40. I guess is there any comment to that item, or?
I think just simply that, we submitted the same, that 1.23% is the CPI for this contract start date. And that is a base wage increase that we're talking about. And thank you for clarifying the calculation of the value.
Analysis. We should go into the closed session for the negotiations part of it. Wait for the motion and then you can pause from there.
So I would move that we go into closed session for now.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we're gonna go discuss the next topics.
Yep, the part 7 of the agenda, or 12, excuse me.
These are all meet and confer items, I believe. Ashley, Gina, John, you guys submitted these, so I think we'll just let you walk through them.
So just briefly before we share some more specifics, these largely are the same topics that we submitted in January. And since that was just a few months ago, rather than starting a whole new list of topics, since this is taking place in the same school year, we thought we'd just offer some follow-up and then also request that you update us on any progress or change that you've seen since our January meeting.
So one of the things that's on there is first item, teacher retention and recruitment. I'm going to fold that one in with number 5, strengthen two-way communication with staff. This has been a tough year. We all know that's been a tough year. And one of the things that I think that the staff has struggled with across all buildings has been the engagement with us as professionals as far as the decision-making process is unfolded throughout the course of the school year. And we recognize that a lot of things have been happening, a lot of things happen fast sometimes, and a lot of decisions need to be made. But the committees that were put together in the summer to take a look at best practice and how to approach different models of instruction pretty much all ended in August. And there was nothing similar to that for the rest of the school year. And so I think there's a fairly consistent feeling across the staff of, you know, we did what we had to do, we had to get through it, but we're not necessarily feeling like our input was, as professional educators in the room with most experience with those tools, specifically, you know, teaching virtually, teaching with the tools that we've been provided with, was necessarily always heard at every step of the way. So we hope to continue to strengthen that, you know, as we go forward, and we all hope that, you know, next year is a little bit more back to normal, so that that process maybe isn't as hectic as what it was this year, and can be a little bit more planned out, a little bit more thoughtful in that process.
I think the tie-in to retention and recruitment, to me is clear, but I'd like to make it as plain as possible. That you know, Todd used the phrase engaging with us as professionals, and when you feel as if your professionalism and your perspective and your it's lived experience is not taken into consideration, it impacts you a lot. And so in basically all of the conversations we've had with staff this year, they've shared that it impacts their not only, you know, how they're feeling about working here, but whether they want to continue working here. And certainly districts across the state were faced with this at the same time. And so sometimes they look at, you know, the decision-making process in the districts and, you know, wonder what can be done with our process. You know, when we brought this up before, people have mentioned, you know, you can come to us anytime. Please let us know what your thoughts are. And we made, I don't even know how many statements this year on behalf of our membership and the staff at large. And we know that probably there was a point where you were like, yeah, but we felt like that was nearly our only input. And so we want to think more about the decision-making process in general and how it doesn't all fall on us to come to you with our perspective. but what is built into the decision-making process that includes that from the beginning. You know, how do building leaders seek input and share input? How do we make sure that teacher voice, that para voice, that custodial voice, that people who are really firsthand experiencing things are involved in not just sharing our perspective, but as much as possible involved in decision making. So,
just add, when we were preparing for this conversation and looking at the week for topics that were brought forward back in January, and I was, not being in the district, looking for some insights into how things have been going, what progress was made. There clearly, there's been an awful lot, and I want to give the board administration a lot of credit for some of the things that we haven't yet covered, but there clearly have been some really tremendous progress. But this communication issue is in contrast to that. So I just wanted to say that there's been some great things clearly, but this is an area there where there's work to do.
I guess I would ask if there's been any discussion or if you all have any thoughts about what that might look like or what further information you're looking for from staff that we could share about, how we address this.
I guess I could start, Gene. I think some of the things that we've talked about, particularly as we started to bring people back here second semester, there's definitely things we do differently. I guess you look at it reflectively and try to figure out how do you improve things moving forward. And I think I'll speak from the administrative lines, I think there's things that we could have and should have done earlier with staff as far as some of the recommendations coming to the board. And those are some things that we've talked about a bit as far as what and when we could have engaged those pieces and made sure that some of those came to you earlier than kind of closer to the end when there really was it was getting up to the front of the board at that point. I think part of it is just the volume of these things. I think there was concern too about knowing kind of where the status of staff were as far as their capacity. And there was concern about that. So whether that's a good rationale or not, that was the rationale and that was part of what we discussed. But certainly as you reflect on it and how it could have gone smoother, I think we all would agree that finding a way to do that even during the challenging times that we were sitting in at that point could have improved. And I think that's a piece that I think we've acknowledged as we've started to kind of debrief about kind of the year and what's gone well and where the bumps in the road have been. That's definitely been one, and some of those things process-wise we can reevaluate. I think where we're going for the future is we do have some time this summer where administratively we have to kind of look at how do we come on the backside of the pandemic. And a big piece of that is kind of building back where we were and realizing going back. I agree with Todd. It's hopefully 5 days a week, more of a normal piece, but also realizing that we're coming out of a challenging year and a half, more than that actually, and then needing to figure out kind of what that looks like going forward and how we build those relations that we value moving forward. So that's I see where we're at. But I would agree. There's been some things that if we could go back and rebuild it as we did it, there's things we could have done differently. At the time, there was rationale for trying to be a bit protective of time and kind of where people were just from a capacity standpoint. But that's as honest an answer as I can give.
Board considered what it might look like to seek more input from staff. I mean, we appreciate the listening sessions, but has there been any discussion about beyond that, what that might look like? not just, I mean, you
I
know,
think there's a
Well-
couple things, if I can add one thing, because I know it was a piece that came up during one of our conversations. Is there was a question about like the ad hoc committee that got proposed on that one of our board meetings. That the ad hoc committee is not moving forward, but the concept of bringing forth on an every other month basis topical areas that are of pertinence and planning for the district to get a broader stakeholder engagement around. Those are intended to not only be community and parents, but also staff. So I think that's a piece that I know was discussed at the board table as it kind of evolved. And that's the piece that administratively we're working on to try to bring forth a plan of what that could look like. But I think there'll be some additional engagement opportunities based off of that.
I would just like to say, Jean, I think it's hugely important that we have staff input, and you know, I will make a commitment to you that I will be sure I know exactly what it is, because sometimes I have a picture of it happening, and then I find out 2 months later that, like Todd said, it kind of stopped at some point. And I apologize, and I feel bad because I was under the kind of mindset that every building had an ongoing kind of steering committee that was going on as the models changed. And I also respect what Randy said. Sometimes you guys are so under fire and so stressed and so overcommitted that asking you to give input, it was a difficult year in many, many ways. But I think, as Randy said, as we come out of it, one thing that I feel is hugely important is that staff are involved as things change. And I think we will see some changes as we come out of pandemic, things that we've learned. And I mean, I welcome staff input. I think that is really important to the success of our organization.
Yeah, no, agree. I mean, at the beginning, I mean, I had a great conversation, a couple of them with Kyle at the beginning of all this, but then those are the only phone calls I ever received. You know, and we also had a lot of discussions regarding do we step in between the staff and the administration? Where I know a lot of times we said if there's an issue when we've been in front of you or been in front of groups, say, let us know, invite us in. So I know some of us have felt like, well, we're not going to get between you and administration, and so, and it's not just, you know, Randy, Brian, his group, whether it be a curriculum issue or a specific department. We figured you work things out through them, and the information we received through administration and through your letters pretty much gave us what we needed to go by. But again, when I came on the board, I said, I am open to come speak, invite me in. But I know it's a bad year because a lot of us weren't in. And that's still open. But after the first couple months of the pandemic, I didn't get any calls from any staff, you know, to talk through things. So it's been tough as a parent, as a community member, as a board member. Communication falls all over the place, and that's so it's been a rough year. And I know we have talked a lot about how we're going to move forward with the community and stakeholders, like Randy said. So yeah, hopefully we follow through with that here soon this summer.
Is there anything else on your list that you want to highlight again?
I think point number 2, and if John brought up, just to say thank you and highlight the progress that's been made in reviewing the salary system and not just the salary schedule, but a lot of things that are in the handbook that have monetary value. Things as simple as, what is the hourly wage for summer school, for curriculum pay, for taking tickets at the football, all those things that, seemingly get overlooked a lot of times in the bigger conversation. I think we've gotten to a spot that's a much better place to continue to update that and address it as we go forward. And I'd just like to say thank you to Steve Summers, because I think it was initially his big idea to try and get a schedule put together to address these financial items on a regular basis, so that it wasn't always languishing until somebody brought it up. So thank you.
Those were traditionally negotiated parts of the whole big picture that we talked about, and so post Act 10, they just haven't shown any progress, so we're happy that that has changed.
For number 3, we had spoken for the past few years during our confer time about some increased clarity about how leadership positions within the district are selected, and we have noticed quite a bit of progress this year with communication as far as what is available and how to apply. And so we appreciate that. There is also an appreciation, and we've also been requesting this for negotiations timeline, and here we are. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here today in May. And so we'll have a clear picture of where we're heading next year.
And then lastly, in January, we wanted to request continued support for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee. And the addendum here in May is, as well as committed individuals and groups working to advance this work. And we wanted to just reach out as partners in this work, because our teaching staff is absolutely committed to this, and people have signed up for so much professional development this year. We've got lots of offerings over the summer through WEAC Region 6, through WEAC itself, and the Wisconsin Public Education Network also has a focus on closing the gaps this summer. So we are committed to this work, and we would like to continue to partner with you and look for new ways to advance this work and to really embed it in who we are and what we do, because all of the things I just mentioned are optional. And so, staff who have personal interest and motivation participate in that, and we want to ensure that all of our teaching staff, all of our staff beyond that, have the training and understanding that is required to tackle these really big and long-lasting problems. And so if you have ideas again about how that partnership might work, we can share information about some opportunities for professional development that you're all welcome to join us in. But it's something that the WTA is committed to, and that we can work together.
I'm not sure the extent to which this conversation has taken place here, but I know that some districts are looking at the potential of tapping into some of the ESSA funding to look at what the district is doing, how that funding is specifically designed to be targeted to things that were related to the pandemic. But one of the things the pandemic illustrated is the unevenness of impact. So I know that some districts are looking at initiatives that would understand what that would look like and make changes. And that's certainly something that might be able to use that funding for.
Yeah, I think some of that was the board right now has approved about $900,000. That's kind of targeted towards specific things that are really post-pandemic. They fit all within the criteria of what you're talking about. It's about helping kids to from interventionists to making sure we have more equitable distribution of where we have staff amongst and within buildings, and making sure that we have staff available to be kind of being able to do their specific functions and moving things like out of our we created a testing coordinator position at the high school. So that used to sit with our counselors, so it moves it out of the counselor's realm so they have an opportunity to work more specifically with kids. And so I think a lot of the things that you brought forward, it's not specifically targeted at the DEI committee, but it's definitely put towards things to move all kids forward and to look at more equitable distribution of the resources across the district. And that'll be a piece we have to work forward in future budgets to figure out kind of how we're going to sustain those things. But it's between probably $800,000 and $900,000 that was committed at the last board meeting towards it.
And that kind of concludes our meeting from first topics.
Do we have anything we need to add to that?
We don't, unless you all feel you have any other comments that you wanted to add or anything you wanted to bring up.
I would just like to ask, this year the board set up 2 listening sessions, one earlier in the year and then one March-ish. Is that helpful? I mean, I think the board is interested in however, whatever platform we've talked about, should we do them Zoom and maybe do all the elementary together? We've kind of kept it by building. If there's a different platform format, timing, we'd be welcome to change our format to accommodate what might be best.
I thought that was one of the benefits of Zoom this year was to be able, everybody could stay
I
where they
think we
were.
got a lot more
Lot more.
participants.
And you didn't have to travel anywhere, wherever you were, you could Zoom in and.
Would it be, beneficial to do, grade levels or whatever you might want to come up with, but if there are any suggestions, please let us know.
I do like the idea of listening sessions, although I appreciate the fact that staff are invited to attend the community-based sessions. That does kind of put some people at it in kind of an awkward situation where they don't necessarily want to have some of the tougher conversations and on that audience. And so I do appreciate staff only listening.
Yeah, and I think we would like to do staff only.
Having a narrow focus on what we're looking at.
Yeah, I personally would rather start doing some face-to-face, so an invitation to sit down with people from maybe would be more beneficial. I'm zoomed out. Right. Now that we sort of can, even if it's a group of 20, in those small listening sessions we did, I was not impressed this year with the 3 or 4 people that showed up. There was more board members, it seemed like at times, than there were people showing up. And for me, that discourages me a little bit from really taking it as serious as what we should.
And I expressed this at one of those likely attended listening sessions that I attended. When that second one came in the spring, there was like a flurry of conversation about why would I attend when I don't feel listened to? And we recognize that being heard, I think as Brian put it, doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna agree and we're gonna do as you have asked. But again, I think that just speaks to the issue of morale and climate, is that we heard a lot of feedback about I'm not going, and not just because I'm busy, but because I'm not gonna set what is left of my precious time aside to speak into the void. So I think we can continue to work with staff, and we did at the time, to say, when there's an opportunity to have your voice heard, if you choose not to take it, that reflects on us as much as anyone else, and that it doesn't make a powerful statement to not attend a listening session. So we'll continue to, share that feedback with our colleagues, but also there's value in what they're saying. It's their perspective that they didn't feel heard and therefore they weren't going to commit more of their time to share their ideas.
So really, you think this was a unique year. So when we go back to looking for feedback outside of the COVID, it should be a better flow, I would think. Participation wise, listening, hearing.
That's our hope.
Yeah, I think ours too.
But I think it has to be more than a hope. I think we can't just plan on that being the case. I think we need to figure out what it is that people need to feel heard, what it is to have systems set up where it's not just those 2 points during the year where you're invited to have dialogue. What kind of structures can be put in place at the building level, at the grade level, whatever level we need to hear from when decisions are being made. What does it look like to really feel like your voice matters?
When Joe was speaking of how exactly to organize these to be mentioned by topic, and maybe that is something we're considering. Next month, we're going to be discussing these topics. For those of you who are invited to go to this listening session.
And that's a possibility.
Definitely give you an idea of what people are interested in. You get double the amount at one than you do the other one. You found a topic that is more concerning to people, so.
Well, and if it's by topic and the topic is based in something that is current work that's taking place,
Correct.
that has impact. And then
Of
people
both
see that my
depths,
voice
yeah.
impacted this decision, and then they're more likely to speak up, because it's not that people don't have perspective to share. So if we can find ways to remind people that their voice matters and has impact, I think we'll see a rise in participation.
For me, your voices were heard. But we also heard them from everybody, and so when you take in viewpoints from 8 to 10 different, members of the community, and then you have to make a vote. It's very difficult, especially when it was a health issue this past year. I've only been on the board a year, so I'm only saying from what we did last,
Yes,
when I
thank you
came
for
on in
your
April.
service.
It'll
So,
get better.
But
It will get
sometimes
better.
people are thinking about specific, the year is a year to talk about, right? But like specifically, when we talked about that final shift back, and it was shared that staff conversations had been taking place for months, and they had not. What message does that send to staff? People are looking around going, who is having this conversation? And so again, if the perspective from the board is that we've been heard, because, I don't know, again, maybe it comes back to just asking questions about who helped to put this plan together.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer would have been principals, period, full stop. And that should have been concerning to you had you had that information. So I think people are hanging on to those specific moments when they know their voice wasn't included. So overall, yes, we shared statements, people emailed, people showed up to speak, and you did what you could, but there are specific moments that will stick out in people's mind as, no, they were not a part of any input. And that's really what I think needs to be addressed, because again, we're hearing like you have been heard. Well, that hasn't been everyone's experience.
So, thank you. Have we got everything on the table that we wanted to and shared?
Yes, a final thank you for making this timeline possible. It's a lot to have this information.
And I'll
Thank you.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we'll wait till 5 to start that second meeting, so, because that's what was posted, is that?
Yeah, I think we should, don't you?